13,000 years ago, across the grasslands and river valleys of Ice Age North America, one predator loomed larger in the lives of early hunter-gatherers than almost any other, the dire wolf. Heavier and more powerfully built than today's gray wolves, dire wolves hunted in coordinated packs of 10 or more, built for running down bison, horses, and young mammoths on open ground. Thousands of their bones have been recovered from a single site, the Brea tar pits in California, more dire wolves than any other mammal found there. That single fact tells us something important. These were social, relentless pack hunters, drawn again and again to trapped or struggling prey, including, at times, the carcasses and camps of the humans sharing their landscape. Dire wolves and early humans were not natural enemies so much as direct competitors. Both hunted the same large herbivores, and both relied on group cooperation to bring down animals too big for one hunter alone. When a pack began shadowing a band of humans, it usually wasn't out of malice or a hunger for human flesh. Wolves rarely saw people as easy prey. More often, they were following the same migrating herds the humans were tracking, or they'd caught the scent of a fresh kill, a drying hide, or meat stored near camp. Persistent stalking behavior, a pack lingering at the edges of a camp for days, was typically a response to opportunity, food, weakness, or an unguarded perimeter, rather than a coordinated siege. Archaeologists studying Ice Age campsites have found a consistent pattern that tells us how vulnerable these moments really were. Predator activity around human sites spiked at dusk and through the night, exactly when human vision is weakest and nocturnal hunters like direwolves are most active. Bone middens near hearths, refuse pits full of butchered animal remains show up again and again close to camps, evidence that food waste itself was a major draw for scavenging predators. A pack that learned to camp meant easy calories, from scraps, hides, or carelessly stored meat, had every reason to keep coming back. Understanding this pattern was the first step toward defense. The danger wasn't the wolves' aggression, it was what human activity was unintentionally offering. The single most effective tool against large nocturnal predators was also the oldest: fire. Controlled use of fire, maintained through the night in shifts, created a boundary few Ice Age carnivores were willing to cross. Experimental studies and comparative observations of modern large carnivores confirm that flickering light and smoke reliably deter wolves, big cats, and bears, disrupting their night vision and signaling active defended territory. A ring of firelight around a camp didn't just provide warmth, it functioned as the earliest home security system. Keeping that fire fed took real effort and planning, gathering fuel, tending embers, assigning someone to watch it burn, but the payoff was consistent. Camps with reliable fire saw far fewer bold nighttime approaches from predatory. Fire deterred, but it didn't guarantee safety, so early humans backed it up with weapons and coordinated defense. Wooden spears, often fire-hardened at the tip for extra strength, gave hunters reach and force well beyond fists or clubs, critical against an animal that could outrun and outmuscle a lone person. Crucially, defense against a wolf pack was a group effort, not an individual one. A single spear thrower is vulnerable. A tight circle of several people facing outward, spears leveled, presents a threat no predator wants to test. This is a strategy still used today by researchers who study wild wolves and by herders defending livestock, numbers, noise, and a unified front turn, a pack's usual advantage, surrounding a smaller group. A single spear thrower is vulnerable. A tight circle of several people facing outward, spears leveled, presents a threat no predator wants to test. Where a camp was placed mattered just as much as how it was defended. Early humans favored sites with natural choke points, a cave with one entrance, a rock overhang, high ground with clear sight lines in every direction. These locations meant a pack couldn't approach unseen and couldn't attack from multiple sides at once, forcing any confrontation into a narrow space defenders could hold. Cave entrances show some of the clearest evidence of this strategy, with hearths built directly at the mouth, combining the choke point with a wall of firelight. Choosing terrain wasn't just about shelter from wind and rain, it was a deliberate defensive calculation, turning the landscape itself into part of the tribe's protection against anything hunting after dark. Behind all of this lay something less tangible but just as important: social organization. Groups appear to have kept rotating night watches, so that someone was always alert while others slept, a practice echoed in hunter-gatherer societies studied in more recent history. Children and the injured were kept toward the center of camp, away from the perimeter where danger would first appear. Alarm calls or simple gestures could bring the whole group awake and armed within moments. None of this required complex technology. It required cooperation, trust, and shared responsibility. In evolutionary terms, this is arguably the real weapon early humans had that dire wolves didn't, not sharper claws or greater speed, but the ability to organize collective defense and pass that knowledge on. In the end, it wasn't any single tactic that kept these communities safe. It was a combination: fire to hold the dark at bay, weapons and group formation to make an attack costly, smart site selection to control the terrain, and social structures that made vigilance a shared, sustainable habit rather than one person's burden. Direwolves themselves vanished around 10,000 years ago, likely as the great herds of Ice Age megafauna they depended on collapsed, a reminder that even a formidable predator can be undone by ecological change. Humans, meanwhile, endured not because they overpowered the wolves outright, but because they out-organized them. That pattern, adapting through cooperation rather than brute strength, would go on to define human survival for tens of thousands of years to come.